Thanks, everybody. Welcome to June 2023 CAFDA. Thank you, Nate, for coming in person. So we're really happy to have some people from Claris with us. That would be Rick, who's taking the place of Doug, who is in Europe somewhere, I think, and Ronnie. So we're really happy you guys are here, and we're looking forward to your presentation, and you can go ahead.
All right, so I'm happy to be here. I am Rick Kalman. I'm a director here, been at FileMaker Claris for a little bit over 22 years. And of course, we've got Ronnie Rios with us as well as Rosemary. I look after the FileMaker platform, and Ronnie these days focuses on Claris Connect, and we're going to talk about both of those. And see if I can get this presentation. Okay, good, it's working. So we're here to talk primarily about the latest release, which is FileMaker 2023. And I want to talk a bit about the primary focus of this release and who this release is focused on. And it's squarely focused on the professional FileMaker. I have 60. The professional FileMaker developer or server administrators. Essentially people that make their living or a significant portion of their living building and supporting FileMaker custom business apps. That's who that's focused on. And of course, we're allowing you to continue to leverage the skills that you've honed over all the years that you've used the platform. And one of the messages we want to deliver is that we are absolutely continuing to deliver advancements to the FileMaker platform. And FileMaker 2023 has advancements that will cover in the areas of security, performance, availability, stability, and integration. And we'll cover all those. Yeah, a bit about the top level goals that we had for this release. Was essentially three the way I look at it. First was to retain our very best customers, people like yourselves here, those who have stayed current with the platform through the 19.x era. That's how I refer to it, because we were on 19 for 3 years. So also to re-engage previous version customers who may have fallen, several releases behind. We send a sort of a message, there's something new out there that people can pay attention to, and you might want to get current. And also to inform many people who may be on earlier versions of 19.x who didn't realize that we had moved from an annual whole number release cycle to continuous releases that averaged 3 or 4 a year. So a lot went on in that, what I call the 19.x era. It was essentially 3 or 4 whole releases worth of work, but it was delivered in a continuous pace. So we felt that it had become confusing for some people who maybe weren't paying as close attention that, it's still on 19, that there's not a there. So those were some of the goals. But I want to also remind you that during the FileMaker 19.x era, we significantly opened the FileMaker platform, allowing you to run JavaScript and web viewers. We introduced JavaScript add-ons. We made enhancements to JSON and curl and our REST API and OData and the admin API. We put the ability to leverage Core ML on Mac OS or iOS devices and train models that you could put in a container field. And we've made some significant advancements to enabling the use of OAuth in our product. And of course, save as XML, where you could serialize and deserialize FileMaker files to begin to do some interesting things. So all of that happened in that 19.x era. And then also, I want to mention that as far as security enhancements, during that time, we also achieved SOC 2, Type 2, and iOS compliance standard certifications for our cloud properties. So that's a little bit about what went on during that time. And here's a quote here. Many of you may know Josh Ormond. He's one of our MVPs on the community. And I won't read the quote, but this is something that Josh is saying about his impressions of the release as well. So I'm going to first talk about the enhancements we've made to FileMaker Pro 2023. And probably the one that would be most interesting to developers is sort of complementary to the transactions that we introduced in 19, and maybe a little bit confusing because of the name of this. We've also introduced the ability to do audit logging. And we have a new on-window transaction script trigger. And you get to that if you go to the file options and the script triggers that are available there, you'll see that there is now this on-window transaction with the ability to select the script to enter a field name. And so I want to talk a little bit more in detail about what's going on here. So with this new trigger, in file options, it provides a method for logging every create, update, and delete in your database interactions. And it gives you hooks into our window-based transaction system that we use ourselves. And as I said, it captures, creates, edits, deletes, and returns information on the changes that took place. Now, there is a engineering blog available on the claris.com site that covers this in more detail, gives some examples, and it's entitled "Creating Audit Logs with On-Window Transaction Script Trigger." If you go to our site and search for that, you'll find that blog. And the other thing about this is that this script trigger passes a JSON parameter that can be captured by a get script parameter function when it calls the script as well. The on-window transaction script trigger captures information about these events. If a record is created, if a record is updated, if a record is deleted, or multiple records updated or multiple records deleted, it can capture that information. And what it does is it will create a JSON file, and if one doesn't exist, it'll when you first instantiate this, that file will be created. By default, it's going to be in the Documents folder, and as you make changes, it will continue to append to that log and capture that in a log. But you can also leverage that inside your solutions in many different ways as well. When the transaction is complete, and the JSON that is created is going to include the file name that the changes took place in, the base table name that was acted upon, the record ID of that records that were changed, the operations that took place, and every transaction or everything that happened during that transaction will be captured in that log. And then to accompany that, we have also introduced 3 new functions. You can see here: base table names, base table IDs, and get base table name. And essentially what these allow you to do is in a more performant fashion, as you're logging or audit, this capturing these changes, you're going directly at the base tables. You don't have to transverse the relationship graph and for any overhead there. So we did that so it was just a little bit more performant to do this. So this is something that, in combination with the transactions that we introduced and now the audit logging, you have a lot of building blocks to be able to more easily do. And folks have been doing this for a number of different ways for a number of years, rolling their own. But this gives some more flexibility and control there. Next, I want to talk about something else we introduced, to a new option to send mail via OAuth 2 authentication. And this is essentially going to show up in 2 places. You're either in the file menu and you're going to send an email, right? And this dialog pops up. or you're creating a script and the same dialog pops up. There's a new option to select an OAuth 2 provider. Right now, there are two that are supported, Microsoft 365 subscriptions, as well as Google Workspace subscriptions. One of the reasons that we did this is vendors are beginning to close down security tighter and tighter, so they're not passing parameters in URLs that can be, captured, sniffed, and nefarious bad actors can do something with that, as Stephen Blackwell may attest to. So this allows you to leverage OAuth 2. What will happen if you set this up? You validate through that side of the house, similar to other OAuth, and then you're able to leverage that. We also have introduced something when you perform a script on server. There's a new option to have a callback script, so that the work can happen on the server asynchronous. And then you can, depending upon how you want to act upon it when it's done, it can call a script, and so allow the clients to continue to work. You don't have to wait, and so it's a nice new option that we've introduced as well. A number of other enhancements to FileMaker Pro. We have moved to OpenSSL 3.0 as a standard now. We've extended the ability to read QR codes, now available on Windows as well as the Windows and Ubuntu server. Previously, it was something available only on the Mac or iOS. The Get Live text function is supported now on FileMaker Server, and there's additional languages that are supported as well, Japanese and others, to give it more versatility. The PDF thumbnail generation is now supported on Windows. For any of you that use this, the Mac OS dark mode is now supported in the relationship graph. The execute data API, we now support date formats in a parameter. So depending upon the region you're in and how you want that to show up. And of course, we always fix bugs, and the count is like 500 that we fixed from 19.6 to 2025. 2023. Excuse me, I'm a couple releases ahead. So that's a high-level look at what we did to FileMaker. Another thing to point out is that we did update to the latest device sizes if you're using that to create your layouts that are going to be deployed on iPhones or iPads. Oops. Before we go on to server, so the technical specifications for FileMaker 2023, FileMaker Pro 2023, it will run on macOS Ventura 13 or macOS Monterey 12, as well as Windows 11 Enterprise and Windows 10 Enterprise 64-bit. And then it is compatible with FileMaker Server all the way back to 19.42, all the way to the latest version, and as well as the FileMaker Pro, same thing for I guess it would be peer-to-peer here, and there will be a FileMaker Cloud to support that as well, something that we'll be delivering fairly soon. Now, if I go over to enhancements we've made to FileMaker Server with 2023, we have essentially doubled the number of files that you can host. A host went from 125 to 256. So that limitation. You have the ability now to scale out to 1,000 FileMaker WebDirect users. There's an asterisk there because this is enabled with our Ubuntu Linux server and the fact that it uses Nginx. We use that as load balancers, and it'll take up to 10 or 11 machines to get to that 1,000. But you are able to serve that now. We have updated our version of Java behind the scenes. There's a lot going on with Java and with our WebDirect is based on that. We've updated Vadin as well, which is a framework we use for WebDirect. And with these updates, there's a lot of performance enhancements we get or things that were bugs because of issues that have been improved with later versions of Java. We also have introduced or now support Ubuntu 2022 LTS on both Intel processors and now ARM processors. So if you're leveraging ARM processors on a Linux device, it's more economical if you're providing hosting and as well. So, and then we have our APIs and our admin console have been updated because they use Node.js to Node.js 18. And we've made some enhancements to logging and notifications as well. One of the other things that to point out is we had some requests for the ability to retain canceled backups if you cancel them. So there's a new option in the admin console for server to set that option as well. And then the technical specs for server are the same operating systems on the Mac OS side, Ventura and Monterey. And then on the Windows side, we've got Windows Server 2022 Standard Edition, Data Center, and 2019 Standard Data Center versions supported. On the Linux side, we've got Ubuntu 22.04 and with AMD, so with the ARM chips as well. So server AMD, desktop AMD, and then we still support Ubuntu 20.04. And then clients that are compatible with server 2023 are all the way back to FileMaker Pro 19.4.2, all the way up to the present version. Now, just worth pointing out that even though we're referring to it, the name officially, as we talk about it publicly, is FileMaker 2023. If you go into the info box for FileMaker, the versions are going to be different. It's easier to track those by whole numbers with dots after them. So that will continue to be there. So behind the scenes, if you're talking to support and you want to know what version, you would say it's version 20.1, and then if we do a VREV, it'll be 20.2, and so on. And then FileMaker Go supported same version numbers as FileMaker Pro, and same with iOS App SDK if you're using that, and of course WebDirect is supported. And at this point, Ronnie, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about Claris Connect.
Thanks, Rick. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to...
Ronnie, before you start, I just wanted to mention everybody that Rosemary's been putting things into the chat, a bunch of links in the chat that would be useful. So keep an eye on that.
Very good. I'm going to keep my camera off. I'm getting some poor network performance here, but I just want to confirm everyone can see my screen. Is okay?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to talk about Claris Connect. And I think no better way to start talking here. I only got a couple of slides, but I think they're very good. And start off with, I think, with the bang and talking about free software. So with the launch of FileMaker 2023, we're also introducing a free plan or free tier of Claris Connect. So this means that everybody now gets the opportunity to integrate their solutions with the help of Claris Connect. Ever since we launched the Claris Connect product, the whole goal of it was to help all of our Claris community members to be able to take their applications and have them talk with the rest of the world, right? No application today lives in isolation, or any successful application can live in isolation. So that's the whole point of Claris Connect. And we want to make sure that as many people as possible can enjoy the feature set of Claris Connect. So by providing this new free tier, everybody gets access to it. And it's while it's free, we're not eliminating any of the features. So you get access to the entire feature set of Claris Connect. So you have access to all the connectors there, all the features that are available in the platform are available in this free plan. The limitation is going to be really on how many steps you can execute on a monthly basis. If you hit that limit, you can always jump up to a different plan that supports more traffic, more calls. But all in all, you get all the features from the get-go. And like I said, the whole point of Connect, the real goal of it is to really help everybody connect their applications to the rest of the world. And ever since the beginning, we've always had connectors for FileMaker, right? FileMaker server. But when we're talking with customers out there, what their challenges they're seeing today in integrating their FileMaker solutions using Claris Connect, the one thing that kept up again and again was triggering a flow in Claris Connect from FileMaker. And it's completely understandable that we're still using insert from URLs, script step, and the steps to make everything work. It's a bit long, and you have to do everything perfect. Any typo there makes the thing not work. So I'm really happy to say that with the launch of FileMaker 2023, we've introduced a new script step specifically targeted to helping you trigger flows in Claris Connect, and it's aptly named Trigger Claris Connect Flow. So this script is specifically designed to do that, and it helps, I think, immensely reducing the friction of getting those flows up and running from your FileMaker solution. This right here is a script from one of our partners doing an integration from FileMaker in the traditional way with an API, right? So it's using insert from URL. It's handling the authentication, storing the variables and capturing the errors and handling errors and all those things. And he said he wanted to test out what it would look like if he migrated this and moved that integration to Claris Connect and using this new script step. And the result is just really astonishing. By doing that transition, you can reduce the complexity of this flow greatly. Not only does it reduce that complexity, making it easier to maintain, but also by putting it in the cloud, it doesn't have to keep all these things updated across several files. You can use the same integration across multiple solutions. So you can do the integration once, has very minimal script in across the files, and then move all that logic on site into a centralized place in the cloud, where it's a lot easier to maintain across multiple solutions. I'm going to take a gamble over here. I'm going to try to show what this looks like live. So I've got a flow here in Claris Connect. I've already have my trigger over here set up. And when I open this, you're going to see some instructions here. This is kind of the old instruction of what would you do if you wanted to trigger this using the old way, right? Using insert from URL script step. And as you can see, you have to create a variable, put all the JSON data that you want to send over here. You got to copy a JSON object or create a JSON object. This follows very specific pieces of data, and then copy the URL and put it into your insert from URL and configure the curl options, right? We're making this a lot easier. I'm going to move over here to FileMaker, and I've got the script over here. I'm going to start typing in here to find my script step. Here it is, Trigger Claris Connect Flow. I'm going to hit the return key, and you notice that the URL was automatically entered here. So that's one of the things about this script step. It automatically detects that you have a URL in your clipboard, and it's going to take that and input that in there for you. So you don't even have to worry about those things. The other thing that we did is that when you want to pass on data, you don't really need to, you don't have to use curl options and learn how to configure those things. We set up a separate parameter specifically designed for passing on your data in JSON format. So when you click on it, you get your familiar calculation engine dialog here. You can type in anything you want, any strings that you want to pass on as a JSON, but obviously, right, you're going to want to use the built-in JSON function. So let's say I'm going to pass on this piece of data, but I can put anything here I want. It can be powered by the data that I have stored in my database. Save that over here and go back over here to my script, and maybe we add something here interesting. Maybe we want to let everybody know on Slack when this flow gets triggered. We'll use here my general one, and then maybe we'll pass the data that we send out from FileMaker. Save changes here. I'll enable this flow, and let's go ahead and trigger this flow by using the script step. Bring up here a Slack, and sure enough, there you go, up and running. So as easy as that, we're trying it so hard to reduce the friction, to make it a lot easier for you to trigger flows and bring integrations from your applications, have your applications talk with the rest of the world using Claris Connect for all of those integration needs. So with that, I'll pass it over back to you, Rick. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Ronnie. A couple things I'd like to point out about this new script step, that sort of accompanies the now free version of Connect for being able to test this. And by the way, since we have introduced that, we've seen a significant uptick in the number of people that are going over to Connect, I think it was really good timing. But what I want to point out to you is that this new script and this ability to connect with Connect, no pun intended, is compatible with FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Go, WebDirect, Server, Cloud, our data API, and custom web publishing. It's pretty much across the board. You can leverage these flows, and of course the flexibility of what Connect can do and what it can connect to adds a lot of versatility there. And this is only the beginning. We have a lot of things on our backlog to make this enhancement even greater, and essentially to make Claris Connect a full part of the FileMaker and larger Claris platform. So this is the beginning of this, our first foray, if you will, and it will become tighter and more tighter integrated. And let me share my slide because I got one more. Let me get there. And there we go. So let me share again. Just one moment, share. Because before we go into Q&A, if you are not aware, and I wanted to point out that we are going to have an in-person, again, Claris Engage event in 2024. It will be in February in Austin, Texas. So that's a little bit different. Probably the weather will be a little bit better as well. Won't be quite as humid as I hear Washington, D.C. is going to be today. Anyway, I'll leave this slide up, but man, would love to see everyone in person again. It's been a while. And if you've been to DevCons or Engages, you know what you're missing, right? Just that camaraderie, the things that happen. I love it because we put stuff in the product and I go to sessions and I see what you all are doing with what we did, and you always blow us away. I look at it as we're just enablers. We give you your, choose your generation, your box of Tinker Toys or Legos, and we have no idea what you're going to build with it, because you can build something simple or you can build Legoland, right? And so you always blow us away. And of course we present, it's a good time. You learn from us, we learn from you. And then everything happens in between, and in the hallways and the bars and in the exhibits. It's just really something, I think, that glues this community together, and a lot of people are wanting to get back together. So we're really excited as well. So we can open it up now for any Q&A that you may have, and we'll do our best to answer. Or if we don't know the answer, we'll come back and provide it back to you sometime.
I'll kick it off. Thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting. And also, since I have Rosemary on the call here, thank you for getting Engage going again. So I'm absolutely thrilled that this is going to happen. My first question actually is about Engage. Usually we used to have a call for speakers, like there'd be people who proposed sessions that they wanted to present. Do you anticipate the format to be similar for that, where you're going to be asking people from the community to speak at the event?
Yes, I do anticipate that. Just stay tuned. We're doing the early logistical planning right now, and we'll have a lot more to share in the coming months.
Okay, very excited. So I saw somewhere in the presentation a chat message popped up that said specifically about the send mail via OAuth 2 thing to wait for an engineering blog. There'd be an engineering blog that would be posted about that. I didn't look at the address on it, or if there was an address on it. Okay, coming soon.
Coming soon. Yeah.
Coming soon. But I did also share, there have been a couple community members who have published articles. So I did share one that's from a partner in the UK who specifically wrote an article about getting that working with Google. The engineering blog will cover both Google and Microsoft.
Oh, very cool.
I've been seeing a lot of back and forth with our documentation team and engineers. So I think that's pretty imminent and back and forth as far as the creation of this. And so I'm expecting it'll be there pretty soon.
Very cool. There was also one blurb in the presentation about retaining canceled backups. I was wondering, this question kind of for everybody, what is the use case for retaining a canceled backup? Like, what would a reason that you would want to retain? Like, is that a partially backed up? Like, we got some of the databases, but not all of them, or
I'm not actually sure what a canceled backup means.
Yeah.
Can you explain the canceled backup?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super close to the details of that. If Douglas were here, he'd be able to go into deeper. We have received requests to preserve those, but I don't know the rationale. Maybe Ronnie or Rosemary does as well. So turn it over to either of you if you.
Yeah, some of those backups are they are backups that for one reason or another the instance wasn't able to complete it. And normally what we would do is we just remove them because it's not a complete backup. But like Rick said, we had got requests for retaining those canceled backup as an option for even if it's partial retrieval analysis, right? Trying to understand where it left off and understanding a little bit better the reasons behind it, and even getting partial data off of those. So, we do what people ask for, right? But yeah.
And maybe there's someone on this meeting that has a sense of what the use case is for that can chime in. And like I said, Douglas was here, he'd give you the rationale because he was the actual product manager that worked on this. I'm sort of floating above at the high strategic level, but I don't know all the details that a product manager actually rolled up their sleeves and helped implement this. That knows. So I apologize for not knowing the answer to that question.
That's okay. I'm thinking that just from what you're saying, the use case is probably graceful shutdowns that weren't so graceful, right? You've lost power, your building is in the dark, but your battery backup is still running for 10 or 15 minutes. And you get back up most of your file, but not all of it got there. So instead of deleting that, it keeps it. So
yeah. Sometimes the backup process takes too long as well and gets aborted. So normally we would just delete what had been copied. Yep, it times out. So normally we would delete that. With this option on, we would retain that, and then you can go back and look at it.
Right, that's very cool. One other question I'm going to ask. It was about Claris Connect, actually. I've written a couple of APIs just kind of for fun. During the pandemic, there's some people that they learned how to bake sourdough bread, and I decided I would learn how to bake an API because I thought that'd be more fun.
Nice. That is fun.
So, yeah. As far as Claris Connect goes, like, is there a way to submit something or to work with the engineering team to have a Claris Connect connector built in
custom
to actually to add your app to the app directory? Like, that's something that's kind of been, it's been talked about, custom stuff. for a couple of years now, and I just figured since I got you on the call, I would ask.
No, and I'm sorry, who's asking? Phil or?
But Sully
I
is.
can't see it. Oh, sorry. It's like really small. I can't see. So yeah, so there are several parts to that question, but I think custom connector, the feature that the team and I are currently working on, helps address a lot of those things. So you're absolutely right. We've had from a lot of customers talk about, well, I'd love to use Connect, and I think it's great, it's easy to use, but you guys don't have the connector that I'm looking for, or this connector, this API is something internal. There's no way you're going to build a connector for it because only I have access to the API, but I'd like to make it a lot easier. Or you guys have the connector, but you don't have all the actions. You're not hitting all the endpoints that we need in order to create have a good use of it. And this is where custom connector comes into play. We're going to give everybody the ability to create their own connectors. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible, but also give you the power to the same tool set that we use internally at Claris to create connectors. We're actually now at the point where we're just testing things. Our ETS group has kind of green flag the whole feature that we'll have for our first release. We're now going to expand this into a broader group of testers. So if you'd like to participate and have a crack at it and test, please send me an email, and I'd be more than happy to add you to that group. We're going to be starting probably next week, so this will be very, very quickly. So that goes to help address some of those things that you were saying. One kind of secret power that Connect has that a lot of people don't realize, and with Custom Connector it gets enhanced, is with Claris Connect you can create your own API. So you could create endpoints, custom endpoints in Claris Connect that will trigger a complete flow. And since you have connectors for FileMaker Server, FileMaker Cloud, you can create flows that literally power complete endpoints that you expose for your particular solution to the outside world. And all of those can be enhanced with security, like API keys and all those things. So you can give access to third party to your solutions without giving them the keys to the kingdom and give them access to the entire database by creating your own API. So since you're familiar with creating APIs, you probably appreciate that, being able to create your API, custom API for your particular solution. And then once you have custom connectors, you can actually create a connector based off of your custom API. So you could even make it even easier for others to consume your application and to integrate with third-party applications through that. We're really excited about bringing those things very quickly to you guys.
Yeah, it's fun. That's really cool. I'm definitely gonna get in on that ETS group. I'll send you an email after the meeting.
Please.
So,
that'd be awesome.
that's fun. Cool. Huh?
Any other questions? I'm assuming you can take questions from people on the that are in this meeting as well. I'm not sure how you run this, but anyway, happy to take on anything.
Yeah, just open it up. Anybody questions while we're Rosemary? Sure.
Think about it. I can ask a really random question that has nothing to do with any of this stuff, but I want to give everybody a chance to talk about anything else first. It's kind of a deep technical thing.
Rosemary, I have a question for you about Engage. How is it, I don't know if you know the answer to this or you have any details, but how is it going to work, not being at a big hotel where everybody stays and we're at the conference center, which I think there might be a few rooms, but not that many. Do you have any idea how that's going to work?
We are still working out those logistics.
Okay.
So it's going to be different. in the spirit
Yeah.
of experimentation and agile, we're trying something new with this event, and we will see how it goes.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks.
Kind of excited that it's at the Apple campus. So you hope there's some kind of organized tour where they take us through something that we're not supposed to see, and right?
Keep wishing.
Right. Maybe it wanders off the White House tour and ends up in the
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So like at the end of the tour, there's only one left.
right.
The old WWDC is next week, so you might see some goodies that you might be enjoying if rumors are correct. And I don't know any more than anyone else does, but yeah. So watch that next week.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Let's go random into the weeds. Okay. So I've been thinking about push notifications in FileMaker Go. So push notifications, it's the things you see in your lock screen that pop up and say the New York Times has a headline for you or whatever it is, right? But in iOS apps, there are ways where if you let the iOS app accept push notifications, then it can send data or it can trigger a GPS ping or run something in the background. So I don't believe that's possible with FileMaker Go or with the FileMaker iOS app SDK. I haven't tried it in a few years, but I was wondering if that's something that we could get in FileMaker Go at some point, if it's a feature that that has some value. The reason I'm wondering this is mostly because I have a couple of different use cases where people have asked me, can you build something in FileMaker that will ping someone's phone when they're not in the app and give me a GPS coordinate? I need to know where my people are. I need to know, like, it's a safety issue. These people are in dangerous situations. I need to know that their phone is still moving and that they're still alive. Or there's another one that's I'm going out beyond cell phone range, and I need to be able to send this particular offsite application some data. I don't care when it gets there, just as soon as they get back into cell range, have it arrive. And one of the nice things about push notifications is that it'll just kind of circle before it lands, right? If it can't find a device to land on, that device that's subscribed to those push notifications, it'll just wait until that device gets back into cell range, and then the device will go looking for the notification and pull it down. So, I mean, that gives you a lot of different flexibility as well, where a device that's outside of that range, when it comes back, it could open something in the background, ping a GPS coordinate, send back a, hey, I'm back, it's here, I can receive data, I can tell you where I am, right? So it's kind of like they're coming back from the dark side of the moon. Anyway, is there anything that anyone has tried in order to get this to work with the app SDK, or is it something that anybody else has any experience with? I just kind of want to open a discussion about it. So I don't think anybody else has done this. You guys done this?
We don't typically hear about what people are doing in iOS SDK necessarily. We believe there are dozens, if not hundreds, of apps on the App Store that it is not apparent that that's what's going on. But what I'd say is this: send what you just said in those use cases to me, Rick_Kalman at, it's Kalman at Claris.com. Send it to me. I will get it on our backlog and get it in front of engineering, and we'll take a look at it. The biggest advantage for us when we get these feature requests is when people provide some use cases of what they're trying to accomplish. That makes a huge difference. That way we make sure that we dial it into the use cases that are out there. I would be surprised if someone hasn't figured out how to do this with the iOS app SDK, since you also got Xcode in the mix. Ronnie and Rosemary, have you heard of anything either on the community or heard from people doing this?
It depends on what type of notification. I mean, there is a built-in local notification into this. We have a script step that allows you to put in local notifications. But if what you're trying to accomplish is that a server comes back and brings up and shows the user a notification tied to that application that it was triggered by the server, then I haven't seen it like specifically show up. There are different ways of sending notifications. There are applications that are built out there just for notifications, but I think this might be a use case that we start exploring then. I'm with you, Rick. I think let's start looking at this.
The first time I looked at this, it was about 3-4 years ago. Someone had asked to replace text messaging with FileMaker on their phone, which is kind of like saying, I'm going to build something better than iMessage, which is not, in FileMaker, which is like, you're asking me to reinvent the wheel, almost literally. So the idea of a text message, like, it doesn't make sense for you to have to open up iMessage in order to download your text messages. It's not useful. It has to beep first, and then when you open iMessage, it should have the image that was sent along with the text message, it's exactly what you said. It's the server sending a push notification to an application that's not even open on a phone that it doesn't know whether it's actually connected to the internet. And that notification just kind of swirls around in the ether until the phone comes and pulls it down, and it knows to beep and open the application in the background and download your photo. And then when you open the app or you open that notification, it shows it in the app. So
shows it in what app? In FileMaker? Or? It
would be in FileMaker in this circumstance, but iMessage is a good way of starting that conversation. If you can do the things that iMessage can do as far as push goes and notifications, background downloads, and that kind of thing, then you're on the right track as far as what you can do with all these other different all the other different pieces that you would want, things like GPS pinging and whatnot. So,
send it to me. It sounds intriguing.
I haven't checked in the years, but I remember back many years ago, I checked. I was looking into a little bit about it, and back when I was doing some research, iOS required that you have a server registered with Apple in order to receive notifications for an app that you've submitted. So, I think we have to look at those things again, right? Please send it over to Rick. I'd love to follow up on and see what the answer is for this one.
You mentioned and sort of smiled about trying to make trying to recreate iMessage. I was at DevCon a number of years ago, and someone pulled me aside and said, "Look what I've done." And they had this extremely elaborate FileMaker solution that essentially replaced the operating system. And I looked at him and said, "Why? You have an operating system. Why would you spend your time building an operating system to float on top of another operating system?" And it literally did everything. He could do his files and folders and all that stuff. Reminds me of in 8.5, I first became a product manager for FileMaker 8.5, and one of my first features was the web viewer. I played around with it, and at the time, I was literally able to completely replicate what you could do in iTunes, including playing the music, but I could also go out and grab album art and other, there was a flash thing that showed the affinity between artists, and I had that. And it was pretty darn cool. But in the end, it's like, well, it's fun to play with, but why?
Right.
Yeah, because you can.
Why reinvent the wheel?
Well, usually it's because you want to do something unique that you can't do with the other thing is usually what leads people down that path.
Right. The first time that somebody asked me to actually do something like iMessage, it was a guy that wanted to be able to have 2 or 3 different phone numbers on the same phone. So he wanted to be able to text from his office line and his sales line and his personal line, all on different channels. So,
I wonder if Apple would frown on that.
probably. I mean, they probably wouldn't like it very much, but it's something you can do from a desktop, or a laptop, but not from your. Right. It's not as easy to do from a phone. Push notifications and the beeps. Right. It's the low connectivity. So once you get outside the outside civilization, right, in the middle of West Texas where there's no cell coverage and you're trying to find a machine to fix, connection. That's one of these cases.
You don't have to go that far to lose cell connection.
Right.
It's a lot of places that are rural that have pretty poor connections.
All I have to do is get in my elevator. Marina City is built with reinforced concrete in a circle that's inside of a circle that's inside of a circle. It's just a bunch of tubes. So you get like the first Faraday cage is when you get in the hallway. And the second one is when you get up to, next to the elevator, and then you get into a box, which is basically another Faraday cage. So
yeah, I
remember
when we were first working on the initial versions of FileMaker Go, and we were working with Todd Geist, and we were looking at what happens if you lose connectivity and reconnect, and trying to dial that in. And one of the things that Todd said I thought was very intriguing. He said that, and I think it's true. He said that the more ubiquitous connectivity becomes, the more critical it is to have offline support. Because we are so dependent upon that when you lose it, how do you gain the continuity of what was going on? And I thought it was astute. It's almost the opposite of what you would expect, but you're trying to bridge the gap that you expect to be there otherwise as you're connected. But there's plenty of cases in the world where you cannot be connected. And there's one thing about the FileMaker platform. We have, I spend a lot of time doing competitive analysis, and there is no one that has the ubiquitous connectivity and deployment capabilities that we have. I mean, you can build something on Mac or Windows and run it native on Windows or Mac. It doesn't care. That thing can be deployed to iOS. It can be rendered as a rich app in a browser. I can deploy on Mac, Windows, Linux, your cloud, my cloud, offline in your data center. I mean, it's just covers everything, and I'll say this, and, we'll get some arrows, but the only thing we don't cover is native. People want, FileMaker Go for Android. But right now our solution is, you'd have to run that in something like WebDirect, maybe Claris Studio, as that matures into the future. But other than that, you don't have to say no, right? And most of our competitors are SaaS and cloud-based. And if it goes down, you don't operate anymore. We can do full hybrid, right? We can mix and match all those piece parts. It's very common now for people to deploy in WebDirect because it's really easy. You don't have to download and install native clients, but people to be running the real system on their desktops, the full-blown thing, and whereas their end users don't need it all, but it's sort of the organizational or administrative part of FileMaker. And the sheer versatility of this hybridness is we often just take it for granted. Heck, we take for granted. We've seen people who say we love Airtable because before we were sharing spreadsheets and it's so much better. And what they really liked is, I can enter something and it shows up for everyone else. And we don't even talk about that anymore. We just take it for granted because we've had that from day one, right? So a lot of times we just take for granted what people don't actually realize about our platform is that it is vastly powerful. We have been iterating on this thing for this DOS-based thing that we inherited from 4 Wang engineers in the mid-'80s. We have been iterating on this for 37 years. It's still here. It is still vibrant. It's still powerful, and we intend it to be here at least that long, if not longer. Again, we're certainly aware of what's going on in the AI ML space. That probably will change things, over time, very interesting ways. And believe me, we're looking at that.
There are a lot of pieces in there you don't even think about anymore. They're just there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The thing that makes FileMaker also can be its Achilles heel in a WAN environment, because, in a LAN environment, you don't notice it, but FileMaker is sort of so forgiving and self-healing. I change something over here, I don't have to worry about it. It just knows what to do, but it comes with chattiness, right? FileMaker is intercommunicating with itself, and you do that over a WAN, and that's where it can, you have to make sure that the thing that you built that was performing perfectly fine in a LAN environment on a desktop computer, you really have to be cognizant of where it's being deployed. I remember initially somebody, when we first introduced FileMaker Go, and literally we would render, exactly what you had in FileMaker Pro, and you could pinch and zoom, but they were complaining about the performance. And remember, think about the first iPad, right? And the kind of power it had. And they said, well, it takes 5 minutes to open, but I looked at it and it had like 1,800 table occurrences and like 2,200 unstored calcs. And I just told them, this will never perform on hardware that's got this limitation, right? So don't do that. But they just wanted it, and on top of that, no one wants a desktop app on their phone or iPad. They want something optimized for a finger, right, and not a mouse, something that they can see. But as we've evolved through all these eras, think about how magical it was that you could take something you built and it just rendered on an iPad, until you realize, yeah, I probably want to dial it in for that. Any other questions?
I had a customer yesterday who asked me if I could put it on the Microsoft Surface. Like, depending on how beefy that Surface is, yeah, I think so.
I have somebody who's been doing that. They use laptops or desktops, but it's a Surface laptop, and he started using that. He said it runs pretty well. He was happy with that.
Right. It is pretty amazing to be able to just say yes to pretty much whatever kind of hardware they ask for, right? Like I didn't even really have to say much on that call. They're like, we bought these tablets. I was like, give me one of them. I'll see if I can load it down there. But the answer is almost undoubtedly yes. So it's just really cool.
Yeah.
The floor is open. If anybody has any questions about anything, go ahead and ask. How's your chance?
Your question doesn't have to be as deep as push notifications. It could be something.
Like I said, Rosemary's been putting things in the chat, and she also put in a survey that you might want to take. So take a look at that before you leave the meeting to make sure that you can fill that out. Well, if nobody has anything to ask or say, I think we can go ahead and finish the meeting. I have plans for a meeting in July. That would be the week of the 4th, July 7th. What's the Friday? July 4th is a Tuesday, 5th, 6th, 7th. So I think July 7th, and will be a presentation by Soliant about using AWS and all kinds of services with your phone. So we'll get that meeting posted soon.
All right. Well, thanks for having us. And let's do this again. I'm more than happy to come and just do a general Q&A session, if people have a chance to think ahead of time, the kinds of things. Maybe we'll get some engineers like Clay Makel and others to come along as well. But we enjoy these things, especially when we get to Q&A. And answer anything that we can. This is one of my favorite parts of the job, is actually just spending time with the people that we actually build this software for. Who's it intended for? Our product does nothing except what you make it do. We're just an enabler. You're the heroes. We're the guides. It can be a hard job. Like I said, it's really hard to make things easy. It's really easy to make things hard, but that's what we aspire to do. And it's the greatest job I've ever had. And I've had it for 22 and a half years. It's by far the longest job I've ever had. And why would I leave? Where's the grass going to be greener than being a part of Apple? Not going to happen. All right.
Well, we really appreciate your spending time with us, and we'll bring more questions next time. I'll make sure.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.